Can I finish the year without doing a clip show? If I do a clip show, will it be terrible? Are these the first self-referential cold open questions? For December 18th, 2015, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in worryingly warm Cranston, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. 'For December 18th, 2015, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. I'm Paul Torville with this look back at the train wreck that was 2015. Now, I know we cover politics and religion a lot on this show, and I really didn't want to flood the year-end recap with a bunch of gobbledygook that's gotten a ton of coverage. I wanted to revisit the stories that seem to have fallen through the cracks. Sure, we all know Ben Carson is insane and Donald Trump is 5. It's clear the Pope is a man in a dress with no more of a handle on what's really going on than you or I. But what happens when a drunken yoga instructor shows up at your bar mitzvah? Or CNN launches a game show? Stick around and find out in our look back at the tragic comedy that was 2015. Engage. The Public Religion Research Institute has recently published the results of a study which, according to the Huffington Post, reveals that white Christians are now the minority in 19 U.S. states, including Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana. A minority, for those of you unfamiliar with fundamental statistics, is a proportion of a population less than half the total. And for the purposes of this study, Christian includes evangelical Protestants, mainline Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Mormons who identify as white non-Hispanic. So, that's got a sting. Moose. So, if you're a 13-year-old Jewish boy from a practicing family, the chances are pretty good you'll have a bar mitzvah. Now, it's not necessarily unusual that a 30-something female yoga instructor might be present at such an event. Yoga instructors have families, and could be Jewish, I guess. Why not? I think. I don't know any yoga instructors personally. Big surprise. I suppose it's not unusual for a yoga instructor to get breast implants. A female yoga instructor, at least. Now, if that female yoga instructor gets drunk and starts flashing guests at the bar mitzvah, I can see how that could get a little awkward. Now, if after that she took a bunch of the adolescent boys at the party into one of the back bedrooms to show off her new equipment, well, the weird factor jumps into the red. If she then encourages them to touch and lick, the wrong-o-meter pegs. And if she then fillets one of them, well, the input buffer for the wrong-o-meter just burns out. Well, Lindsay Radowski, 32, from the Scottsdale, Arizona area, allegedly did all of those exciting things. She's now facing 12 felony charges, including playing a 15-year-old's skin flute. She hasn't admitted much other than being blackout drunk. I suspect the trial will be entertaining. We're going to keep an eye on this one. This past week has been very exciting at the U.S. Capitol building. Last Saturday saw 22-year-old Leo Thornton from Lincolnwood, Illinois, commit suicide near the Capitol's visitor center. He was apparently protesting social injustice or something to do with taxes. Some have claimed the sign that he was holding said, "Tax the 1%, although no clear photos or authoritative reports have been released. Immediately after he shot himself, Capitol Police swooped in and neutralized him. Not sure what the hell that means. I mean, how much more neutral can you get? And no, the Capitol Police don't seem to be saying much about what the sign said either. Then, as if that wasn't enough excitement for 1 week, postal worker Douglas Mark Hughes, 61, from Ruskin, Florida, landed what most news outlets are calling a gyrocopter on the west lawn of the Capitol building on Wednesday, as a tax day stunt to bring attention to the need for campaign finance reform. Extra points to Hughes for publicizing his plan for months on his website and even tipping off the Tampa Bay Times. Hughes had planned to walk away from his autogyro with the 535 individually addressed copies of his letter to all the senators and representatives in the Capitol and hand-deliver them. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Capitol Police were there when he landed, weapons drawn, and he was quickly bundled away. A bomb squad robot examined the aircraft, and it was further inspected by heavily padded people. No bombs, just letters. Never going to be delivered. So, taxing the 1% and campaign finance reform, both good ideas, both not going to happen. Good to know. The ironically named Corey Golightly, a McCracken County, Kentucky sheriff's deputy, accidentally shot his mother during a wedding ceremony. Good guys with guns? Generalized public carry? Good idea? How paranoid do you have to be to say, I really want to enjoy this wedding, but just in case Obama tries to declare martial law in the middle of it, I'm going to bring my gun. I just want to make sure I carry it in such a way as to allow it to fall to the ground accidentally, discharge unexpectedly, and injure my mother. Golightly is on paid leave. Great news, everyone! Chlamydia is on the rampage at the tiny Crane High School in Crane, Texas. Reportedly, about 1 in 15 students at the school has contracted the sexually transmitted disease. As you may have imagined, Crane High School has effectively no official sex ed curriculum. So, might this be one of those cases where evidence makes a mockery of faith and the faithful make an ad hoc nod to the evidence, and then as soon as the panic is over, they go right back to believing and basing important life decisions on imaginary nonsense? Yeah, I think so. So you may have heard of Chuck Norris and the third fist he keeps behind his beard, but did you know about the crazy he keeps behind his eyes? In an article Norris wrote for the WorldNet Daily, he speculated that the upcoming U.S. joint military exercise called Jade Helm 15 may be a plot to occupy Texas. Look, Chuck, before we get any further into this, that brilliant military strategist George W. Bush couldn't successfully pull off occupations of Afghanistan and Iraq. What makes you think Barack Obama has the skills and nerve to try to militarily take and hold a quarter of the land area of the continental United States, especially considering that the states you think will be subject to invasion are chock full of gun-toting patriots packed to the gills with ammunition? And what could the federal government hope to achieve by taking over Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and California? Norris's article does not venture a guess. He does say that skepticism in the face of things the government offers as benign or good is sensible, and I'd agree. However, I don't remember Mr. Norris's outrage when the USA Patriot Act was signed into law, or when we invaded Iraq, or when the PRISM program was outed. Do you? Thankfully, Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott are looking into it. I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of this and discover that all the Walmarts will be converted into FEMA concentration camps, and fluoridation of water is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot that we've ever had to face. With any luck, Mr. Norris will retreat to the bathroom and cut himself shaving. Michael Kevin Meadows, 43, of West Virginia, managed to save police a fair amount of time by not successfully robbing a pharmacy in Beaver, West Virginia. He also saved everyone a whole lot of pain and suffering by not attempting the robbery with a firearm or other potentially deadly weapon. Security video shows a man believed by authorities to be Meadows entering the pharmacy wearing a paintball mask and full camo. He then pepper-sprayed employees of the store and walked, are you ready for this? Right into the cloud of pepper spray. He immediately exhibited symptoms of being affected by the spray, staggering out of the store, hopped into an SUV, and drove off. The driver of the SUV spilled the beans on Meadows, and Meadows was promptly charged with attempted robbery. George Zimmerman, that Teflon-coated asshole who exploited Florida's ridiculous Stand Your Ground law to get acquitted of the murder of Trayvon Martin and has since been an unrepentant jerk, well, all that sowing has apparently, finally, led to some reaping. Zimmerman was reportedly slightly injured by broken window glass as someone reportedly shot at Zimmerman through the passenger side window of his Honda Ridgeline. Matthew Apperson, whom Zimmerman had stalked and threatened back in 2014, was charged in the shooting. Apperson had called the police about the stalking and threatening incident last year, but declined to press charges. At the risk of seeming judgmental, that was a dumb move. Charges! Press charges! Why doesn't anyone press charges against this frickin' idiot? Like, hydraulically press charges. The website Wallet Hub ran an analysis of a bunch of government data and determined, ready for this, by and large, red states are more dependent on federal tax dollars than blue states. So, the states whose residents are most noisy about keep your government hands off my Medicare, the ones decrying Obama's so-called socialist agenda, are the states benefiting from that very socialism. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is hypocrisy. Recent studies show a strong causal correlation between the rise of the social app, Tinder, and the rise of incidence of the social disease, syphilis. Duh! Who didn't see this coming? As a harbinger of the sad state of the basic understanding of science among the general populace in the United States, Kenneth Smith of Jefferson County, West Virginia, has filed suit against the education officials at the local and federal level and the head of the National Institutes of Health, claiming that evolution is a religion, and as such, the teaching of it in public schools violates his child's constitutional rights. Smith so far has chosen to represent himself. It's not clear whether that's because he is so confident of his case that he just can't lose, or because every lawyer he spoke to about it just laughed him out of the room. The complaint Smith filed, apart from the requisite legalistic boilerplate language, is a rambling, incoherent word salad, but from what I can make out, his principal complaint is that his daughter, being given education in evolution, will interfere with her ability to become a veterinarian. Viz. The defendant's actions during the 2014-2015 school year affects my child's future directly through the state grading system to enter college and ability to earn economic security and a good job in her chosen veterinary medical field of work, by being taught a faith-based evolutionary ideology that just doesn't exist and has no math to back it. The intensity of the stupidity on offer here is staggering. Blinding, even. I will be very, very, very surprised if the U.S. District Court even grants him standing. My suspicion is that the court will simply dismiss the suit with prejudice and order that any instruments, means, and materials for writing at his disposal be confiscated and his child remanded to the Child Protective Services. CNN has apparently lost all its sense of what it means to be a respectable news outlet. CNN has a game show. I never saw Walter Cronkite on Jeopardy! Can you imagine the hit Frank Reynolds' credibility would have taken had he hosted What's My Line? Yeah, I know. What the hell is What's My Line? According to Pennsylvania State Troopers, Logan Shawless, 19, of Somerset, Pennsylvania, set up a roadblock on State Route 601, complete with his car parked diagonally across the road and road flares. Shawless stopped a few people, claiming it was a sobriety checkpoint, and asking for the standard documents, but was eventually stopped by the real police. He was reportedly intoxicated. Shawless faces 1 felony charge and 15 misdemeanors. Guess you won't be doing that again soon, eh, Logan? And that magnitude 6 earthquake in Malaysia last week, caused by... Ready for this? European nudists nuding it up on the top of Mount Kilibaloo and cheesing off the mountain spirits. This, according to, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher this name, but I apologize in advance, Deputy Chief Minister Tam Sri Joseph Perin Kitengan, an actual Malaysian government official. An actual Malaysian government official! Wow. After decades of speculation and Z-grade sci-fi horror flicks, Italian neurosurgeon Sergio Canavero is hoping to be able to attempt a human head transplant in the near future. He has a guy with a head who needs a new body all lined up. To read Sky News' account of the planned surgery, it's a little simpler than changing the single spark plug on a lawnmower. Dr. Canavero thinks the biggest hurdle will be winning ethical approval for the surgery. I'm sure he's right. North Korea had tried intimidating the world with its rockets. The world pretty much shrugged. Then they tried to intimidate the world with their nuclear weapons. The world raised an eyebrow. Next, they tried to impress the world with their space program. The world stared with incredulity. Now, North Korea has, reportedly, developed a wonder drug that cures cancer, HIV, and Ebola. Principal components of the drug are ginseng and so-called rare earth elements. Although it's not clear whether the North Korean Central News Agency is using the term rare earth elements in the way Carl Sagan might have, or the way Deepak Chopra would. And I'm sure the millions of ordinary North Koreans suffering from years of drought, famine, and total intrusive domination will be delighted to know their Ebola, HIV, and cancer fears are a thing of the past. And if these North Korean scientists can achieve such a miracle of ASEAN proportions with ginseng, imagine what they could do with glucosamine, chondroitin, or the ever-mysterious ginkgo biloba. The Girl Scouts of Western Washington told a donor, in effect, thanks, but no thanks, when his donation came with the restriction that it could not be used to support transgender girls. The returned donation left the GSWW with a $100,000 funding gap. They put up a campaign on Indiegogo and nearly doubled their goal in a day. So bigotry wins again. Kevin Maynard, a 59-year-old employee of the Rhode Island Veterans Cemetery, has pled guilty to stealing granite grave markers and other cemetery items. According to authorities, he had at least 150 grave markers he was using as flooring in his patio and in his shed and 2 garages. At least he didn't make a toilet out of them. The grave markers are provided free of charge to families of deceased veterans by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. Maynard, as a consequence of his plea deal, will get 1 year on probation and will have to serve 500 hours of community service. Now, I don't usually get all hot and bothered about military issues, honoring this and respecting that. I mean, if you want to, that's fine, but I'm not particularly proud of my military service, and I don't usually get worked up about the dead. I don't hold human remains as sacred. And yet, this numbnuts has officially gotten my goat. Personally, I don't care if my military service is never mentioned again. If I die and my body is properly disposed of and there's no hunk of stone to indicate where I might have been, that's okay with me. But for those for whom it's not okay, who like to have their dead relatives sealed in a box underground with a heavy carved stone marker, That's their business, and it's not your business, Mr. Maynard, to pry up those markers and use them for your own purposes. And while I don't think that Joe Random Veteran is necessarily deserving of the reverence normally reserved for demigods simply by virtue of having served, I do think that once a person is dead, however his or her family and or community has chosen to commemorate that individual, that memorial should at least be afforded the common courtesy of not being vandalized. I admit that's a pretty low bar, and Kevin Maynard has managed to limbo under it. Wallace Berg, 81, of Stratford, Connecticut, was arrested and charged with second-degree breach of the peace when he was found humping a bush. Now, second-degree breach of the peace sounds bad, but here in Rhode Island, and a lot of other places around the country, if you're caught urinating in public, even, like, deep in the woods, miles from anyone, no one around, registered sex offender, still humping a bush. Sounds like Wallace has a thorny issue to deal with. Well, it's 70 years now since the end of World War II. Different people are commemorating the event in different ways. The Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for example, held solemn remembrances for the hundreds of thousands killed when the U.S. dropped nuclear bombs on those cities. Rhode Island maintains a weird, anachronistic, and slightly offensive holiday, and North Korea, well, they set their clocks back a half hour. Apparently, it's really stuck in the craw of the leadership of the DPRK that when Japan colonized the Korean peninsula, they put it on Japan time to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the end of Japanese colonial rule, and to rub it in the face of the Japanese, North Korea decided to screw up its train and bus schedules. Well played, Kim. Well played. If you're considering stealing something, say, a dildo, Christopher Hucko of Orland Park, Illinois, may have some lessons for you as a result of his experience at his local Lover's Lane store. An employee of the store had observed Hucko putting merchandise in his pants and then called the police. Police arrived and waited outside the store, waiting for Hucko to leave the store, of course, completing the theft. The officers apprehended him, and the teachable moment began. First, if you're going to try to steal something, you're not helping your case at all if you're completely obvious in the way that you take and or hide what you're trying to steal. Second, if you're confronted by police and asked, for example, what you've got stuffed in your pants, my penis is almost certainly not the answer they're looking for. If you are picked up for theft or shoplifting, having a pocket full of weed and a bowl in your possession will likely not induce the police to take pity on you. Third, if you've already established yourself as a less than successful criminal, that is to say, if you have any kind of arrest record, the police will find this out, and you will probably not be getting off with a warning. Fourth, if you have any forms to sign while you're being booked, because, if you haven't learned lessons 1 through 3, you will be booked. Signing the forms, Obama is a criminal, is probably not going to bring you any sympathy with your case when it comes to trial. Didn't we? Some people think chocolate and peanut butter are two great tastes that go great together. Oreos and milk. Bacon and, well, anything. Guns and alcohol. Yes, guns and alcohol. And where? Texas? No. Arizona? No. California? No. As uniquely wacky as all those places can be? No. Try more south and more east. Florida, the state that brought us hanging chads and the Terry Schiavo case, has given the nod to a 12-lane indoor shooting range with a restaurant and a bar. What Florida City had the foresight to approve this faultless idea that couldn't possibly lead to something horrible? Why, Daytona Beach, of course. Really, What other city has the sensibility and restraint to conceive of such a thing? Let alone approve it. So, okay, can we please, at long last, can we please just saw Florida off and cast it adrift in the Caribbean? Chick-fil-A, the unabashedly Christian chicken sandwich chain, hopes to expand into Denver, Colorado's international airport, but the city of Denver isn't too sure it wants their kind there. As you may recall, Chick-fil-A's president, Dan Cathy, had some not-so-inclusive things to say regarding homosexuality and marriage equality back in 2012, and the company caught a lot of heat for that. Well, now the city of Denver is considering not permitting the chain to open a location in its airport over concerns that the company uses its corporate profits to promote an anti-gay agenda. Interestingly, while Denver is generally regarded as one of the most liberal cities in Colorado, when set against liberal strongholds like San Francisco and Portland, Oregon, Denver's conservative colors show a little more distinctly. Amusingly, there are already at least 20 Chick-fil-A locations in the Denver area, and it seems any attempt at keeping the company's Chickens for Bigotry exchange program out of Denver altogether have failed, or never started. But it seems this action will at least allow travelers to get inside the city limits proper before they realize what they've gotten themselves into. Martin Shkreli, the smug hipster pharma tool who needs to learn to shut his whore mouth when Billy Mays is talking, got his ass handed to him as an elegantly prepared plate of charcuterie in a recent Reddit Ask Me Anything. One user who identified himself as a doctor who works for a charity demolished Shkreli like a roid-raged Mike Tyson beating Jesse Helms to death using Strom Thurmond as the blunt instrument. It's refreshing to know that not everyone regards unchecked greed and flagrant ignorance with a blasé shrug and a "what can you do?" There is a time for rudeness, for calling a spade, and a greedy douchebag, a greedy douchebag. All hail thee, Anandaya. Joshua Rudestein, the loudmouth, fat-ass Christian YouTube sensation, overestimator of his own importance, and self-proclaimed social media personality, lost his last marble over Starbucks' simple red cup design for this year's winter season, because it doesn't explicitly say, "Jesus is the reason for the season!" or some shit. And he got on CNN only to have his Skype connection suck. And speaking of just desserts for assholes, a campaign in Brazil going under the name Virtual Racism, Real Consequences is using geotagging on racist comments found on social media to publicly display these comments near the place where the user posted the comment, often on billboards or bus stops. The names and profile pictures are pixelated out, but apparently people are beginning to see their own comments and feeling kind of shitty about it. Well, good. This is the first and will probably be the last thing I say about Fallout 4. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, you can submit your story tips online at newsundies.com or on Twitter with the hashtag NUSTip. NewsUndies is a weekly show, but we'll be taking a break for the holidays and to get ready for the 2016 season. We'll be back on Friday, February 5th with fresh undies. In the meantime, progress videos will be released, so keep your eyes out for those. If you like this video, please like this video. If you like the show, please spread the word and subscribe if you haven't already. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, circle us on Google+, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, ignore us on MySpace, tell your friends, and buy NewsUndies Kitsch at newsundies.com. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at NewsUndies, until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be neck deep in making this show even more awesomer for next year.
I just want to tell you good luck. We're all counting on you.